Hello everyone. So this is a very important video in which I'll be explaining you your biggest doubt. Your biggest doubt which most of the retail traders have in their mind, that whenever I buy a stock it starts falling, or mostly in my cases all the breakouts which happen always fail. So I am sure that if you're listening to this video, you will be having that doubt at any stage of your trading, that whenever you buy a breakout, it fails. Whenever you buy a stock, it starts falling as if someone is looking at you. सबको ये फीलिंग आती होगी. तो इसका आंसर मैं आप सब लोगों को आज दूंगा. इस आंसर के लिए आपको मेरे साथ यू हैव टू बी फॉर नेक्स्ट 5-10 minutes. आई विल एक्सप्लेन यू वेरी ब्यूटिफुली दैट हाउ टू interpret the chart, how to know that a chart can reverse from there, and how to actually know that whether that breakout does make sense or not. Because seeing a breakout, trading it is very easy, anyone can do it, but understanding what's happening at actually the chart, the trend, is the main part which helps you give an edge. After learning this, I'm not saying that every time you buy a breakout it will be a like a good breakout only, it will be a past breakout only. That's not the case. But the point is, after learning the basic things which I'm going to teach you in this video, you will be able to get high probability trades. All right, so now let's first understand that how market works. Most of all, you know that how market works, but I'll just refresh that for you. And believe me, this, if you understand, if you don't skip this part, you will be understanding how actually things are working. You will be able to decide what not to buy, because considering a buy is very important, but what to avoid is the most important thing, which in my opinion is. So knowing what to not to buy is way more important. So every one of us knows that the market moves somewhat like this, right? It always move in this fashion. It starts creating by a higher high, then a higher low, then a higher high again, then a higher low again. So this is the basic nature of any market. I'll show you in some charts just to illustrate what I'm trying to convey to you at the end, but just focus on what I'm trying to teach you. So basically this is how the market works when it's in an uptrend. So as a swing trader, your objective is to get into a stock like this. Now, most of you, what happens, who do into swing trading, I've seen very rare people who even go to the weekly time frame. They usually trade on the daily and somewhat smaller time frames, hourly or 2 hourly or 3 hourly, whatever you want to choose, or 4 hourly also. But they never see the weekly time frame. But the actual story lies in the analysis of all those time frame. It's not about a single time frame which you are considering. Today I made some entries which I shared on the Twitter channel also, which if you have not subscribed to, if not following that, you should do that, because the trades which I take are not something which are just on the basis of technical analysis. I don't go into details of all those complicated stuff. I don't go into the details of forming all those channels and trend lines. But for me, the main question which I want to ask before taking a trade is that what is the probability of getting success in this trade? So this is the one constant question which I have for everything. Now, understanding the structure, we understand that this is a stock. Like this is the basic structure of any chart. Now let's see some of the breakouts which failed. You could have easily ascertained that why they failed over there, right? Now I'm on to the chart of BSC right now. Right now, what people usually do, if I just show you over here, what people usually do is that they know that the market just moves like this. So they consider buying at these levels over here. Now, this is the place wherein you need to use your professional judgment. How many of you know the concept of fractals? Market actually move in fractals, even the entire nature. Not only the stock market charts, the entire nature is divided into fractals. Now, what does fractals means? Fractal means there are patterns inside a pattern. For instance, if you go to a park and see a stem or a bark of any tree, on one stem you will be finding different branches of that. And within those branches, there are again different branches of that. So same way in the market also, within a trend, there is a different trend. Now, this trend which you are seeing as an uptrend over here is part of a bigger trend, same as in a case of a tree, right? Now, the story is that I just told you that the market just moves like this. So ideally this place over here should resonate with this place, because you can say that this is the place and where we are trying to sustain, like we are not breaking any of the lows. The market was continuously breaking 1, 2, 3 lows. And after this point, the market created a green candle. This is a buy signal, as what I have told right now. But there is an additional step which you guys need to very well analyze. Now I'll tell you the bigger trend, how the market is behaving. On the daily, just remember that it's forming higher highs and higher low. Whatever I said right now makes sense, that this was the point to buy. Then why it failed? Why it failed like this miserably? Forget about these levels. These boxes over here are part of my indicator, which I have custom made for myself. These were the monthly levels also, which this indicator provides on every stock. You can get this indicator from me also. You can just let me know in comments. But this is not the objective of this video. The objective of this video is to understand why this particular trend failed over here. Why we cannot consider entry again over here. If we say the market is forming a double bottom, why we cannot consider entry over here? Why it can be difficult? Why the probability? The question which I ask myself, that why the probability over here is not in my favor even after the criteria of a trend, uptrend is getting satisfied. Now I'll show you the bigger picture on this, and then all of your perspective will suddenly change. I'm very sure about it. So let's move to the bigger picture. That is the bigger branch of the tree. Now if you see over here, ideally I told you the market behaves how? The market behaves in this manner, right? Now over here we see that the market trend, just focusing on this much trend only. Just focusing on this much trend only. Let me just widen the screen for you. Yeah. So just focusing on this much trend only, the price was moving like this. It created a higher high. It moved down. It created a higher low. Then it created a higher high. Now ideally, what situation you were seeing on daily? The daily was showing you an uptrend wherein you saw a higher low being created and an entry. But right now on the weekly time frame, you see that we are at a place which is not the higher low. It's the higher high forming. It's somewhat this area. So when you are trading on some chart into a swing trading, you must give equal importance to the weekly time frames also. I'm not saying you to jump onto the daily monthly time frames, because if you jumped onto the monthly time frame, it will certainly give you a good picture. If you see this, it's a more better picture. The price was moving higher high, higher low. Over here it was just near the highs. It is not higher low which we saw in daily time frame. It's a higher high which we are seeing on monthly and the weekly time frame, right? Now over here, if I ask myself that question, that what is the highest probability I see over here? Let me just remove these drawings over here. I think everything which I'm explaining right now is making sense to you. If you are not getting the clarity, I request all of you to go back to the video, try to understand the concept, because this is very, very important. Important to the power of infinity. Okay. So basically on the daily we saw it's a higher low forming. There was an entry which many people got stuck. Many Twitter handles, everywhere we saw entries going into BSC. But this got failed just because of the reason that the market moves in fractals. We know that on the weekly time frame we are at a place wherein, if you see this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 continuous candles, ignoring these 2 candles in between, 6 continuous candles were able to break above the high of the previous candle. But over here something happened which actually halted the price action. The second candle over here was not able to break above the high of the previous candle. What does this tell you? Because if a stock has to go up, it has to break above the high of the previous candle. But this does not happen over here. Same happens when the stock is falling. So till the time the stock is not able to hold below above the low of the previous candle, the price action won't stop. If you see this, anywhere over here in this entire price action, you won't see any of the candle holding to any of the previous lows, right? Previous low candle. And none of the candle was able to break above the high of the previous candle, correct? In this entire trend. So same thing was happening over here. The price was continuously going up, and suddenly what happened? Suddenly the price was not able to go above the high of the previous candle. At this point of time, you know that if we consider a trend like this, you can answer yourself that whether this is point number 1 or this is point number 2. So if you consider this point as point number 1, you are on the right track of understanding the things. Now over here, I knew when I asked the question to myself that what is the highest probability over here. So the question answer which I got is the highest probability is that we might not continue to move up. Why? Because the price is not able to break above the high of any previous candle, which was happening earlier. The price is at the all-time high, which gives us an important level of resistance. So over here, even if we get a breakout which is happening on the daily time frame, ignoring the weekly time frame, there are chances that it won't work. Now let me show you another example in case of an index, because this kind of price action is repeated everywhere. Now let me show you one very beautiful thing over here. Now we were moving very beautifully over here. Just from this place, we kind of pulled back, then we pulled back again, then we got this big candle, a big candle. After seeing this big candle, there were so many Twitter handles which got very much positive, because this was a very big candle as compared to any other candle on the chart in this entire trend, which showed utmost strength. But the question over here is that whether this was real strength or not. That lies in the bigger picture. You need to know what fruit that tree gives, right? And to know what fruit that tree gives, you need to know what that tree is, and you need to know the bigger picture. Now over here, if you see again, after even this big candle, for 3 continuous days, the price was not able to hold above the high of the previous candle. Nowhere happened. In this entire place, if you see, the price was able to close above the high of the previous candle, this in the entire place. And over here, even if you see that, this was the first time the price was holding below the low of the previous candle, above the low of the previous candle, and this first candle was able to break above the high of the previous candle, which never happened over here, right? So this is how the price action stopped over here. Now again, immediately opposite to that, over here, these 3 candles were not able to break above the high of the previous candle. But this is something what has already happened. This is very easy to say right now. But how this particular setup was avoidable if you're an option trader, or if you take trades basis what the index is giving to you, you know what index can do, because if the index is falling, there are high chances that you will feel pressure in your swing trades also. Right. Now let's go to another stock, like not another stock, the other chart pattern. Now over here, I knew that now the picture is very clear. The stock was moving like this. This index was moving like this. Just over here, as we saw in the other case of the another stock, BSC, from last 2 weeks, the price was not able to break above or close above the high of the previous candle. So even if we got that strong candle in between, that daily candle in between, we could have easily avoided it, knowing that this is how the trend works. This is point number 1. And at point number 1, after breaking the highs, there are few candles which are not able to break above the high of the previous candles. So if you know the story, at the back of your mind, you know what the weekly time frame is doing, your trading will gradually improve a lot. Now, let me show you one example on the monthly time frame. Let us see if monthly time frame has anything or not. Okay. Now see this. Again, the same thing which happened on that particular BSC stock. Now, we were at the monthly highs. Same place, we had a big resistance over here, because the obvious highs or the all-time highs give you a good supply zone, a good resistance zone. So considering all the factors, 1, we are at the monthly zone. 2nd, on the weekly, we are not able to break above the highs of the previous candle. And at weekly, we are at point number 2, point number 1, not point number 2. So how do you expect the trade to be a high probability trade? Because at the end of the day, when you are swing trading, it's all about probabilities. Let me give you one more quick example of what should be avoided. You can see that stock, that is something which is showing strength today, but in my opinion, it has high chances of getting failed. Now see this. Now let's see this picture over here. This is a very beautiful example of what to avoid, right? I'll start from the monthly time frame to give you a flavor of the multi time frame analysis also. Now right now what's happening? Just try to think. Market was moving like this. It created a higher low, then it created a low, high at the same level, came down, created a low when the price was able to hold the lows of the previous candle, and then this was one first candle which break above the high. Now on the monthly time frame, there is a one candle forming ideally after 2-3 candles, which can be ideally point number 1, that which is not able to hold above the high of the previous candle. Now if you get a breakout on the daily time frame and you know that the monthly time frame is not supporting you, it's already extended, it may be a point number 1, then what you will do? You will either avoid it or you will keep that into your scanning only, because till the time the monthly time frame or the weekly time frame is not making sense, things won't work for you. Now let's go to the weekly time frame to analyze it better. Now if you see this, the weekly time frame gives you a more clearer picture. We are at the end of the week. We are already at the close of Friday. Now we know that the stock was continuously breaking the highs, swing highs, or you can say the previous candle highs, continuously breaking the previous candle high. But this is one fine candle which is not able to break above the high of the previous candle. Now what do you see over here? Either the stock is going into a price correction, or the stock is going into a time correction, because we are at point number 1. Ideally, a point number 1 could be seen over here. Now, if I show you over here on the daily time frame, that after a pullback, same story which happened in BSC, we can see the same thing happening over here. Very high chances that same story, BSC also moved like this. It created a swing low, higher swing low, which there is a candle which breaks above the previous high. Now you know that on the monthly we are at point number 1, on weekly we are at point number 1, and we are also at the high of the monthly levels. This my indicator is also telling me. Now if you're seeing only this picture over here, this big candle over here, which we saw in Nifty, which we saw in BSC, they all failed. Considering that scenario that we saw 2 failures, what do you see over here? What is the highest probability? Considering monthly, weekly and daily, the highest probability is that this kind of trades should be avoided. I think till now it makes sense to you. Now let me show you 2 more stocks which I took an entry today. Let me just check in my phone what is the stocks which I took an entry. I just forgot the names because there are so many stocks running that I tend to forget the names. Okay, now the first stock which I took today, which I shared on the Twitter handle also, was PB Fintech. Now let's see why I considered this entry, why I bought it over here. Why? What was the step? There was a breakout which of this area which made me took that decision? Yes, this was one reason which made me took this decision. But majorly, the situation over here was the bigger time frame. Now on the bigger time frame, I know the story. Not just focus on this box over here. This box price action. The price went up, created a higher high, then created a higher low, then higher high at the same level, pulled back. Over here, it's trying to hold at the lows of the previous swing low. Now, I know one thing for sure, that the weekly is in my favor. On the weekly, we are breaking above. We have already broke above the high of the previous candle. So it is an ideal breakout on weekly. Now, when we know that we are supported by the weekly, there are very high chances that we go into a good trade. But the only shortcoming of this thing is that when you're trading a weekly pattern, weekly can test all your patience. I mentioned that on the post also. So I'm very well expecting that it might be a scenario that it pulls back into this area again, wherein there is utmost price action, and then takes some support over here. So I'll try to buy that weakness over here. Why? And what will be giving me that confidence? Because I know that this swing low is getting hold. So I've kept my stop loss just over here, just below this 3-4 candles, which are weekly candles, which give me a price action of 22 days, the entire month. So the entire month was able to hold over here, the previous entire month. And now we are getting a breakout on the weekly. So there are high probability that we don't fail over here. The next stock which I want to show you, which I took today, is Indo-Borax. Let's see over here what happened. Now, most of the people, retailers, how do they trade? What they do, it's not overt analysis. It's about understanding what's happening. They draw a trend line like this. They saw a breakout and then they trade. They saw a breakout. This is a good breakout. And if you see the volume also over here, let me see what's the volume. The volume has also risen like above the previous so many days volume, correct? So it's a good setup on daily. Now, let's see whether we have that edge, the edge of higher probability on our side. That picture will be given to you by the weekly and the monthly time frame. In this case, I refer to the weekly time frame, which gave me that edge. This kind of analysis will also help you solve your questions, that whenever you take a trade, it starts falling against you. Now, just to answer this, I'm going to the weekly time frame. Now, on the weekly time frame, it's a very early bird entry. Why I took it, and see what probability you see in your favor. It went up, created a higher low, swing low, and so many candles were not able to break below the lows of the previous candle. So that's a good sign. Stock went up again after creating this big candle, consolidated. And if you see this, in this candle, the next candle was not able to break above the high of the previous candle. Same happened in Mahindra and Mahindra Finance. It's actually happening. So it went into a price correction, time correction phase over there. So same scenario can be expected over there also. Now after that, it pulled back, and then on the same levels, this is the first candle, the first green candle which formed this week, which is able to close above the high of the previous candle. So ideally what we see a point number 2 forming over here. Now when we know that it's a point number 2 on daily, not on daily, on weekly, and daily is showing some strength, will that give you an additional probability edge? The answer is yes, if you're able to guess that. So this is how you should avoid taking stocks or trades only on the daily based patterns, because that will be certainly giving you good trades sometimes, but the probability, the hitting ratio, the success hitting ratio will always be lower. So in order to bring your success hitting ratio higher, in order to have that edge of probability, I'll suggest always don't forget to check the weekly patterns. At least. Let me show you one more stock which I took an entry today also. And these are all stock which I'll be buying them in tranches, not one at a go, because I'm trading basis the weekly time frame. Though entering on the daily, but trading basis the weekly, because weekly when goes into a price correction or time correction, I have to give that trade the entire space to breathe, and I also have some money left to allocate when it pulls back, if it pulls back. Now if you see this on the weekly, what's happening? This is how beautifully the stock is looking right now. It was forming a good channel over here. This is the first time wherein the channel is getting broken. So this gives me that edge, that I know that basis the weekly time frame, after a pullback wherein the risk is very minimum of going down, it is able to hold below above the lows of the previous candle, and this is the first candle which is having a very good volume and which is able to close above the high of the previous so many candles. Now I'll jump on to the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, what I did today, I took an entry, obviously in tranches. I've not gone in full. Whatever risk I take, I've not gone into full. I've taken an entry at a very good level. Now at this point of time, very less traders will be willing to take an entry on a red day, but I took it. Because why? Because I had it in my mind that what weekly is doing. I know that on the weekly, when it got extended, it had a pullback, which is seen over here. And after having a pullback, these candles are not able to break below the low of the candle. Even if it does, my stop loss is somewhere over here, because that is below the weekly base which we saw, right? So even it does go down, I'll be adding it some more over here if it showed strength. And right now I have bought the weakness. But buying the weakness does not mean that you're actually buying a stock which does not have strength. This stock has strength, but is not shown on the daily. That's very much visible on the weekly time frame. So I hope this answers all your question, that why a stock always fall, that when you buy it, there is no one looking to you when you trade who is trading against you. Whenever you buy it, it starts falling. There is no one looking at you. These are all myths which should be broken. It's just the timing. You have it on your charts, and after that you have to have all that patience to make that stock work when you enter wrong. But when you enter right, the stocks will immediately work in your favor or immediately hit your stop loss. They won't block your money. So always make it a point as a bottom line that don't forget to see the weekly time frames, because what is happening at the bigger time frame is more important than what is happening at the daily time frame. The same applies to intraday trading also. If you are doing an intraday, you should be knowing what's happening on the 1 hourly or the 2 hourly time frame before jumping onto the 15 minutes. Today I traded Nifty options. It went very well. I traded a call. It went very well. I booked some good profits, 40-50 points of premium I booked. So it was a very good trade, considering the fact that on the daily, I knew that there are high chances that the price is able to hold above the low of the previous candle after the pullback. There is lesser risk of going down, and I knew that there can be a green candle formed. So having that mindset in my mind, I knew that on daily there is a green candle forming. I bought weakness over there. I'll show you how. I'll just show you the place wherein I bought the options. Same concept applied. On the daily, if you see over here, I knew that after that pullback over here, this is the first candle which formed yesterday, which was able to hold above the low of the previous candle, and today when it was passing through the high of the previous candle, I knew that the daily candle can be green, so I have to be on what side? On the call sides only. So I entered somewhere over here. Let me just draw it to you. I entered somewhere over here and remove my position somewhere over here. It was very easy trade for me. Why? The same story. It was above the monthly levels also. The price was trying to hold on the daily. So I knew what's happening on the bigger time frame. And just to have an intraday edge, I was supposed to know what was happening on the daily time frame. So this is what I want all of you to learn. If you don't understand this, I am holding a free webinar on Zoom wherein I would request all of you to join. We'll be discussing a lot of concepts about technical analysis, and I'll be giving you such insights which no one has ever told you. Such a way to look at the charts which no one has ever told you. This is just 10%. There is a lot in technical analysis without complicating it, without using any indicator. The only indicator which I use over here is my own indicator. If you see this, how beautifully this indicator works. All these levels are super duper important. This was the place wherein we predicted the fall to be over, and it went up very beautifully. So I didn't trade it this day because I was not available. I was slightly busy, but this was the place wherein I clearly mentioned on my Twitter channel that this is the place from where it can reverse. And I said it over here, not over here. I said it 3 days back. Why I was able to say it like this? Because of my important levels. At that point of time, this weekly level was somewhere over here, and it took a support exactly from that level. Okay, so not making much of your time, I've already taken a lot of time. It was a big video. I didn't expect that, but I hope this makes sense to you. Thank you guys.